Good morning and welcome back. Myself Dr. JIBRAN Ahmed presents to you Simply Pathology, and today we are back with a very interesting topic, that is the molecular basis of cancer. As I promised you that I will increase the frequency of my videos. So yesterday I had uploaded one video and today I am uploading the other video. This is the fourth video, part 4 of neoplasia. So without wasting any time, let us begin molecular basis of cancer. So just remember one thing, that the molecular basis of cancer is a very important question, and it is very important to know the molecular basis of cancer. For the proper understanding of this chapter, you have to understand this particular part, because this part will tell you the overview of all the things. So what is basically happening in cancer? Okay, so the first event in the molecular basis of cancer is a non-lethal genetic damage which is lying at the heart of carcinogenesis. Okay, so number one thing is that. Okay, so basically the molecular basis of cancer, the role of genetic and epigenetic alteration. So the first thing that we are watching here is the non-lethal genetic damage lying at the heart of carcinogenesis. So what do you mean by non-lethal genetic damage? It is that genetic damage which is causing some damage to the cell DNA, but it is not causing the death of that particular cell. That is why non-lethal. Okay, and at the heart of carcinogenesis, this is very important. Why? Because for carcinogenesis you require some mutation that will make a cell abnormal. Okay, so they will abnormally proliferate, but that shouldn't lead to death of that particular cell. That is only way that the neoplasia can grow in size. So a non-lethal genetic damage is lying at the heart of carcinogenesis. So the initial damage, that is the mutation, can be either from your environmental exposure, okay, that is going to lead to acquired mutation. It can either be inherited in germline, okay, from your parents or grandparents, or it can occur sporadically. Sporadically means by chance or spontaneously or randomly some mutation can occur. Okay, second thing is that the tumor is formed by the clonal expansion of a single precursor cell. So all the tumors, they are monoclonal, means all of them are having the same kind of genetic makeup or mutation. That is what defines neoplasia actually. Okay, so tumor is formed by the clonal expansion of a single precursor cell that has incurred the genetic damage. That is to say that the tumors are clonal in nature. So remember, alterations in the DNA, they are heritable and they can be passed to the daughter cells. Therefore remember that all cells within an individual tumor, they will share the same set of mutations that were present at the moment of transformation. Okay, remember that this is the basis of how we can differentiate a neoplastic lesion from a non-neoplastic lesion. So neoplastic lesions, they are monoclonal, they are having the same genetic makeup, whereas non-neoplastic lesions, for example reactive lesions, okay, or inflammatory lesions, they are polyclonal in nature. Okay, they have different genetic makeup. All the cells are not having the same genetic makeup. This is how we differentiate. This is a very important point in understanding. Okay, remember, next 4 classes of genes are involved in carcinogenesis. One is the activation of proto-oncogene. So you must be wondering that what is a proto-oncogene. Remember, that particular gene which if activated unconditionally, it remains active, and which is not under control, that is going to cause growth and proliferation. Remember, normally also in our body we are having proto-oncogenes which are activated only when growth is required. Okay, and when the target growth, when it is met, after that the proto-oncogenes will be switched off. But in case of cancer, this switching off of the proto-oncogenes is not there. So there is uncontrolled activation of the proto-oncogenes leading to unlimited growth and proliferation. Second important thing over here is there is a loss of tumor suppressor genes. Remember one thing, that whenever our cells are dividing, okay, only normal DNA, only DNA which is free of any kind of mutation or DNA damage, only that can participate in cell cycle and that can divide. Okay, for example, if a particular DNA has or a particular cell has undergone mutation, so that particular cell will not be able to participate in cell cycle. That will be taken away by the tumor suppressor genes. Okay, and then the tumor suppressor genes are going to they are going to try to repair that particular cell. If the DNA can be repaired, then that particular cell will go back into the cell cycle. If the DNA cannot be prepared, then that will go for cell death. So this function of catching the cells with a bad DNA, that role is with the tumor suppressor gene. So in case of neoplasia, there will be a loss of tumor suppressor gene. So when the tumor suppressor gene is not there, then automatically what will happen, that all the cells with a mutated DNA or a bad DNA, they will enter the cell cycle and they will proliferate. Okay, so loss of tumor suppressor gene is second important class of gene involved in carcinogenesis. Third is there is abnormality in the regulation of apoptosis. So cancer cells, they escape the process of apoptosis, okay, because there is some abnormality in the regulation of apoptosis. So again, they are escaping death. And lastly, remember, our immune system, okay, our immune system is acting against the host immune, is acting against cancer cells. Remember, our immune system, the CD4 plus the CD8 plus T cells, they are acting against the cancer cells, okay. So sometimes the cancers, they develop certain mechanisms to evade the host immune system. Okay, so these are the four major classes of genes which are involved in carcinogenesis. Okay. After that, so these are the four basic genes that we have already seen now. Okay, so one by one we are going to see all of these genes. So remember, all these four genes are principal targets of cancer causing mutation. So the mutations which are involving the proto-oncogene, remember, whenever there is any kind of mutation which is involving the proto-oncogene, remember there can be two things over here. Number one, there can be increase in one or more of the normal function of the cell. Secondly, there can be appearance of a completely new function in a cell. Therefore, these mutations are called as gain of function mutation, because of these particular mutations involving the proto-oncogenes, either the normal function of the cell is increased or there is an appearance of a completely new function. Therefore, these mutations are called as gain of function mutation. Okay. Remember, therefore, in cancers, the proto-oncogenes, they encode certain oncogenic gene products with an increase in their normal function despite having the normal copy of the same gene. So we can say that oncogenes are dominant over their normal counterpart. As I already told you, I will repeat again that the proto-oncogenes are the genes which are normally found in our body, and they are activated only when the growth and proliferation or repair is required. After our target growth or repair is achieved, the proto-oncogenes are switched off. But in cancer, these genes are over-regulated, means they are over-activated unlimitedly without any control. These genes go on activation and there is uncontrolled growth and proliferation. And even the normal function of the cell, that is increased, or the cells are going to gain a completely new function. Okay, that is because of mutation in the proto-oncogene. Secondly, there are mutations in the tumor suppressor gene. I have already explained how a tumor suppressor gene works. Okay, so if there is a loss of function of the tumor suppressor gene, remember one thing, that both the alleles, so any gene is having two alleles, yes, so both the alleles, okay, must be lost for the neoplastic transformation to occur. That is, the tumor behaves in a recessive manner. Okay, so for any gene we are having two alleles, okay, and for autosomal recessive disorders we know that both the alleles has to be mutated. Okay, so cancer is basically predominantly, I am saying, they are behaving in a recessive manner, but there is an exception. Sometimes loss of a single allele can lead to a neoplastic transformation, and this term is called as haploinsufficiency. So I want that all of you must understand this term haploinsufficiency, because later on in further systemic pathology you are going to come across these terms a lot. So you have to understand the meaning of these terms right on from this chapter. Okay, so remember, any tumor suppressor gene, they are having two alleles for a single gene. Okay, normally both the alleles has to be inactivated or mutated for the cancer to occur, but sometimes with the inactivation of a single allele there will be a neoplastic transformation, and such conditions is called as haploinsufficiency, that even with loss of a single allele they are going to cause carcinogenesis. Okay. Now again we are having the mutations in the genes which are regulating apoptosis. Remember, if there are mutation in all the genes which are regulating apoptosis, so there will be reduced cell death. Why? Because of reduced apoptosis. That means enhanced cell survival. So remember, there can be, this pathway can occur in two ways. Either the genes whose products suppress apoptosis, they will have a gain of function mutation. As you have already seen my lectures on apoptosis, so you know there are certain pro-apoptotic proteins, there are certain anti-apoptotic proteins. So certain proteins proteins are promoting apoptosis, okay, and certain proteins are preventing apoptosis. So if the function of the proteins which are actually preventing apoptosis, if that is increased, that is again a function mutation, and there will be reduced apoptosis. Similarly, genes if you see whose product are promoting apoptosis, so if there is a loss of function mutation of that particular gene, again the net effect will be decreased apoptosis. Okay, now fourthly, we are having the loss of function mutation affecting DNA repair genes. Again, it is very important. So as I already told you, there are certain genes which are encoding certain enzymes which are responsible for repair of the DNA, damaged DNA. Okay, so if there is loss of function of those particular DNA repair genes, then that DNA repair enzymes are not there, and as a result, bad cells with a bad DNA or with a mutated DNA, they will be allowed to continue with the cell cycle. Okay, and then this is going to give rise to neoplasia. So indirectly, they cause carcinogenesis by impairing the ability of the cells to recognize and repair the non-lethal genetic damage. This causes the affected cells to acquire mutations at a very fast rate, accelerated rate, and this rate at which the cells, when a cell is having a lot of mutations in a very short period of time, that kind of cell is said to have a mutator phenotype. Okay, it is said to have a mutator phenotype, a state of marked genomic instability. So you will come across this term, mutator phenotype, genomic instability. So these are important terms that you have to understand. Now, carcinogenesis occurs due to accumulation of mutations over a period of time in a stepwise fashion. So you have to understand this. Now, when you are going to read about your colonic adenocarcinoma, when you are going to read about the endometrial carcinoma, or when you are going to read about the ovarian carcinoma, carcinoma of the CA cervix, okay, or when you are going to read about different pancreatic carcinomas. So different kinds of carcinomas, if you see, they have a stepwise fashion of acquiring mutations, and then there is a stepwise acquiring from normal to hyperplasia to carcinoma in situ. Then after that you are having cancer. So it is happening in a stepwise manner. Okay, so that is why we have to understand this now, because when we are going to read the systemic pathology, there we have to understand how and where all things are taking place, okay, in a stepwise fashion. So carcinogenesis is resulting from accumulation of complementary mutations in a stepwise fashion over a period of time. So mutations that contribute to acquisition of cancer, hallmarks, are referred to as driver mutations. So what are the hallmarks of cancer? At the end of this lecture we will understand. It is the same thing that when basically a tumor is basically a mass of cell is becoming neoplastic, that is basically they are acquiring the hallmarks of cancer. Okay, so those mutations which are most important, okay, in causing carcinogenesis, those particular mutations are called as the driver mutation. What? It is called as the driver mutation. So driver mutations are those mutations which are directly leading to carcinogenesis and which are very important in the pathogenesis of cancer. So the first driver mutation that is starting a cell on the path to malignancy is called as the initiating mutation. So these terms you should understand. MCQs will be asked from these terms only. Okay, so remember, remains in all the tumor cells subsequently in cancer. So what they are saying over here, that the initiating mutation, that is the first driver mutation, is called as the initiating mutation, and this mutation will be present in all the subsequent tumor cells, and therefore we say that the tumor are monoclonal, because at least this one initiating mutation is present in all the tumor cells, so they are monoclonal in nature. Okay, the initiated cells singly do not acquire the full transforming ability. So just with the initiating driver mutation, or just with one single mutation, that particular cell will not have cancer. Okay, the initiated cell will acquire a number of additional driver mutations, each of which also contributes to the development of cancer. So the initiated cells, okay, over a period of time they are going to become cancer, and this time interval is quite lengthy. Okay, it is suggesting that the initiated cells must have a stem cell like property that have a capacity for self renewal and long term persistence. Okay, so that is very important. So for example, if a person is having cancer today, so don't think that the cancer started just a few months back. No, at least one decade before, or at least 10 years, 15 years before, the cancer process has started. Over a period of time there has been different mutations. Ultimately every driver mutation is contributing towards cancer. For example, first driver mutation is contributing 5%, second is contributing 8%. So till so there are multiple thousands of these driver mutations are there, and in the process when they reach 100%, then they cause cancer. So this time interval between the initiated cell and the cancer is very lengthy. So if a person person is having cancer today, if he is presenting clinically today, doesn't mean that the cancer has suddenly come. No, the process has started a long time back. Okay. Loss of function mutation in the genes that maintain genomic integrity, it appears to be a common early step on the road to malignancy, particularly in solid tumors. So we have already read about this, that is the tumor suppressor genes, or the genes which are responsible for maintaining the DNA. Okay, those genes, if they get damaged or if there's a loss of function of those genes, then cell damage will not be recognized and will not be repaired, and they will enter the cell cycle. Okay, so mutation causing genomic instability not only increase the chance of acquiring driver mutation, but they also increase the chance of acquiring those mutation which is of no consequence. So they have no phenotypic consequence as such, and these mutations which are just just happening, they do not have any role in carcinogenesis. They are just happening by chance. Okay, so along with driver mutations, you are having multiple other mutations which are having no phenotypic consequence, that is, they do not contribute towards carcinogenesis. And these mutations are much more common than driver mutation. These are called as passenger mutation. So remember, by the time the tumor acquires all the driver mutations, it may bear hundreds or thousands of passenger mutation. So for example, okay, if there is a cancer, and if you study that cancer, you will see that cancer is having maybe around 10,000 passenger mutation and may have just around 500 driver mutation. Remember, those 10,000 passenger mutation, they do not have any effect whatsoever in the pathogenesis of cancer. But the driver mutations are the most important ones which play an important role in carcinogenesis. Okay, so here I think you have understood the difference between a driver mutation and passenger mutation, because MCQs will come from this. Okay, number C, the mutations in many other genes contribute towards carcinogenesis by interfering with the host immune response, as I already told, or they alter the interactions with the stroma. So these are not the driver or the passenger mutations. So apart from the driver and passenger mutation, there are multiple other mutations which is actually affecting the host immune response, or they are altering the interactions with the stroma, which are causing carcinogenesis. So other mutations other than driver or passenger mutations are also involved in carcinogenesis. So if you look at the basic step-by-step process of carcinogenesis, if you see, this is a normal cell. It has acquired the first driver mutation, that is the initiating driver mutation. There is a carcinogen which has induced a mutation. So now we are having, this is the initiating mutation. After that, with the initiated precursor, they will have a stem cell-like property, okay, and they will acquire additional driver mutation. So there will be acquisition of cancer hallmarks over a period of time. Again, this founding cancer cell or the initiated cell will undergo additional mutations, okay, and then multiple subclones of the tumors will be formed. Okay, so further genetic evolution has taken place, and then at last the tumor will become genetically heterogeneous tumor, that is, they will have multiple subclones. Okay, now other important aspects of carcinogenesis, which are other important points that you need to know. So remember, once the cancer is established, the tumor will evolve genetically during their outgrowth and the progression under the pressure of Darwinian selection, that is the survival of fittest. So we all know the Darwinian theory, that the cell clone which is most, as you already know, a tumor is composed of multiple subclones. Yes, all of them are having, remember, all of them are having certain characteristics, but only those particular tumor subclone is going to survive till the end, which are fittest. Okay, so remember, early on, all the cells in a tumor, they are genetically identical. For example, all of them, they are having a mutation X. Okay, so with time interval, they will have additional mutations. Okay, so now there will be different subclones within the same tumor. If you see, some of the tumor cells are having X plus A mutation, some of them are having X plus B mutation, some of them are having X plus C mutation. So over a period of time, as you saw, the tumors are becoming genetically heterogeneous. Okay, they are having, but remember, all of them, they are monoclonal, because all of them, they are having that particular mutation which was present in the founding cancer cell or in the initiated cell, that is X, but they are a little bit different also. They are having, in addition to X, they are having A, B and C. So remember, in the final clinically evident phase of cancer, the cancer or the tumor mass is genetically heterogeneous, comprising of multiple subclones. So this is one concept that you should understand. This is the concept of tumor heterogeneity. Okay, the tumor is heterogeneous. Okay, So these subclones that we saw, they are having two kind of mutation. Number one, those mutations which are present in all the tumor cells, probably which was present in the founding tumor cell, that is called as a mutation X. Another mutation which is unique to a subclone of the tumor which was acquired during tumor evolution. Okay, so for example A, B, C, so this particular additional mutation that they are having, they are actually giving them an identity. Okay, remember these diverse tumor subclones, they compete for access to nutrients and the microenvironmental niche, and those that are most fit, they will dominate the tumor mass. So that will lead to the selection of the fittest cells. Okay, this also explains the changes in the tumor behavior following therapy. So I will explain you how it is happening. For example, there are three different subclones of a tumor cell. Okay, this is subclone number 1, which is which is sensitive to the treatment. This is subclone number 2, which is again sensitive to the treatment. Subclone number 3, which is resistant to the treatment. Okay, so by Darwinian's theory, the subclone number 3 is the fittest because it is not affected by the by the treatment. So what will happen, that after we give treatment to the patient, only those subclones will remain. The subclone number 3 will survive, that is resistant to the original treatment, and that will be responsible for tumor recurrence. Okay, so this points you should understand very nicely why sometimes some cancer is relapsing. This is because of this, and this is also explaining or supporting the Darwinian theory. Okay, now the epigenetic modifications and its role in cancer. Remember, we had read about the epigenetics, what epigenetics is. Okay, in the first chapter, okay, in the first chapter of Robbins. So remember, epigenetics are actually physiological changes that is involved in expression of the genes. Okay, so they have a role in gene expression. Sometimes they will cause excessive gene expression, sometimes they are going to silence the gene expression. Okay, so for example, sometime if they silence the tumor suppressor gene, if they decrease expression of tumor suppressor gene, it can lead to cancer. So indirectly, epigenetic modifications, they are having a role in carcinogenesis, and the details of which we are going to see in much more in further lectures. Over here, suffice is to say that in addition to DNA mutations, epigenetic aberrations also contribute to carcinogenesis. Remember, epigenetic changes are physiological changes and they are inheritable. Okay, they are passed on from one generation to another. So sometimes the epigenetic changes can cause DNA methylation, leading to silencing the gene expression. Sometimes it is going to modify the histone proteins, which can either enhance or they can dampen the gene expression. Okay, so epigenetic modifications, they are passed on faithfully to the daughter cells, but on occasions alterations might occur, like DNA mutation, which might alter the gene expression. So epigenetic modifications, they are inheritable changes. Second thing is that, for example, there is a gene silencing. Because of epigenetic modification, there was a gene silencing, and there is a silencing of the tumor suppressor gene. This will lead to carcinogenesis. Similarly, epigenetic alterations are potentially reversible. Unlike the DNA mutation, remember, they are potentially reversible with drugs. That is why this is an area of research, because we can target cancer therapy. We can actually target the cancers with therapy by targeting epigenetic modifications. So now we are going to see the last, the cellular and the molecular hallmarks of cancer. Okay, very, very important part. Many Viva questions are coming from here. So all the cancers, they display 8 fundamental changes in the cell physiology, which are considered the hallmarks of cancer. Number 1, the cell sufficiency in the growth signals. That is, the tumor has the capacity to proliferate without any external stimulus, usually as a result of oncogene activation, the proto-oncogene activation, as I said before. Secondly, they are insensitive to growth inhibiting signals. So tumor may not respond to the molecules that inhibit the proliferation of normal cells, usually due to inactivation of the tumor suppressor genes that encode the components of growth inhibiting pathways. Remember, the altered cellular metabolism is the third important hallmark of cancer. Tumor cells undergo a metabolic switch to aerobic glycolysis, that is called as a Warburg's effect, which enables the synthesis of macromolecules and organelles which are needed for rapid growth of tumor cells. So this Warburg effect I am going to do in detail. This will be a separate lecture altogether. So there I am going to discuss about in details altered cellular metabolism. Thirdly, there is an evasion of apoptosis. So tumors are resistant to the programmed cell death, that is apoptosis. There is a limitless replicative potential, that is stem cell-like property occurs. Immortality is there. The tumors are having unrestricted proliferative capacity, a stem cell-like property that allows the tumor cells to avoid the cellular senescence and mitotic catastrophe. Okay. Then there is a sustained angiogenesis. The tumor cells, like the normal cells, they are not able to grow without a vascular supply to bring the nutrients and oxygens and to remove the waste products. Therefore, they induce angiogenesis. So tumor cells, they need a constant blood supply, okay, so for growth and survival. Then ability to invade and metastasize, as you already know, this is the single most important hallmark of cancer, that is metastasis, okay, and ability to evade the host immune response. Now the immune system cells, they recognize and they eliminate the cancer cells, okay. The cancer cells exhibit number of alterations to evade the host immune system, okay. Remember one thing, genomic instability and cancer promoting inflammation, okay, they accelerate the frequency of mutation and therefore the tumor progression, okay. So these are the 8 important hallmarks of cancer. So hope you have understood this in details, and remember, these 8 hallmarks of cancer will be discussed in details in subsequent topics. So they will be separate topic lectures, okay. So thank you very much guys for watching this lecture, and I hope you have understood all the the previous lectures on neoplasia. And in case of any doubt, please do comment on the comment section. And thank you very much guys. Please do subscribe to my channel, and please, if you can, please do donate, and you can help us via the PayPal links. Thank you very much guys for watching our videos. Stay tuned for further lectures.